Hello, and welcome to my review of the perfect grade 160 scale Gundam Astray red frame. So I did buy this kit pre-built, secondhand. When I got the kit, I disassembled it, fixed up all the nub marks so it matched my standards, and then put it all back together. But unfortunately, that does mean I'm missing some stuff, namely stuff like the box, the instruction manual, the decal stickers, and whatnot. The biggest thing I'm missing are probably the beam saber effect parts, the flat pink ones. But I don't think that's too much of a loss considering I'm not going to be displaying it with the beam sabers when it has the Gunpla straight katana. So right out of the box, you're going to be getting the perfect grade red frame, the katana, the sheath, as well as the mechanism to mount it onto the waist, a beam rifle, a shield, two beam saber handles, and normally you'd also get the two flat pink beam saber effect parts, some stickers, dry transfer, and foil stickers for the eyes and cameras. So in this part of the review, we'll be focusing mainly on just the inner frame of this perfect grade. So here's the inner frame. It's pretty solid for a perfect grade. I really like these chrome pistons, especially how they move and show themselves off as you move and articulate the torso. And speaking of articulation, you're not going to be able to get too much as an ab crunch, so I think this is probably a good thing because this frame is known for mounting a lot of heavy backpacks. Side to side is also not that impressive. The coolest thing is that it's going to show off these chrome pistons. In terms of the cockpit gimmick, you're going to be able to pull this part forward and slide the entire cockpit out and show off a tiny low yield, if that's how you even pronounce it. You can slide this back in, though you can still kind of see his tiny legs. Now onto the shoulder articulation, you're going to be able to move this all the way up, exposing, again, a lot of cool silver pistons. And in terms of moving it out, you're going to be able to get a tiny bit, though nothing too crazy like on modern day and raster grades. The neck is also going to be very simple. It's just going to be on a simple mechanism that allows it to slide back and forth. No cool chicken neck mechanisms like on modern master grades. Now the back is going to be pretty simple. You're just going to get a hard mount that you can use to attach on the backpacks. So here is the waist armor. It's pretty minimalistic, but I do like how all of these skirts have an inner frame. It's very nice to see on a perfect grade. So in terms of mechanisms, you're going to get a weird one where you can kind of slide the side skirts out ever so slightly. I imagine this is because it helps mount the katana a bit better. For the die-cast metal piece, this is going to be the peg that you attach the entire legs onto. And those are going to be able to swing if you just bring this mechanism down. You can swing this forward, though it's a very tight fit. And once you do, you can lock this back up and you can get the legs in a different position. Now similarly in terms of moving pieces, you're also going to get the sliding piece that hides the attachment point for the action base, which isn't even included. It's only for the, it's basically a leftover from the perfect grade Strike Gundam, where it would come with an action base if you got the Ale Strike extension. Now onto the ankles, you're going to get a pretty solid ankle mechanism, a good amount of movement here and there, attachment points for the ankle armor, and if you lift the ankle up a bit, you're going to be able to see two small chrome pistons, though they're mainly going to be hidden once you put the armor on. You're only going to be able to see them at very, very specific angles. Now, I think one of the coolest part, though this is moving more onto the leg, is the mechanism here on the lower leg, where as you move it up and down, these mechanisms up here tend to imitate muscles, and they also move up and down respectively. Another silver piston back there, and these attachment points are going to anchor on a huge shin piece, which will move as the shin and ankles also move. Now onto the actual main legs, mainly the upper one, you're going to have a huge piece of die-cast metal here. You just slap two pieces of red plastic around it to kind of cover it up, but some of it does show through. There's going to be a large piece of chrome here, but that's basically going to be covered up once you get all of the armor pieces on. So now onto the knee bend. You're going to get a very impressive bend. The knee armor slides up very nicely and becomes flush, while the thigh armor splits very nicely and exposes even more chrome piping. And once more from the front. Very impressive, very nice. And finally, you're going to get this connection mechanism to mount onto the waist. It's pretty simple, nothing too complex, though it is pretty stiff and should be a pretty solid connection. So here is the inner frame of the shoulder. I have to say it's pretty unnoteworthy. The only thing of interest is all the detail parts here on the back. though painting that would probably make it look a lot better, but also be kind of a pain. Other than that, this is pretty unremarkable. You're going to get some movement here and there. It just kind of feels like they wanted to meet the quota of having a shoulder inner frame. The Perfect Grade Strikes shoulder inner frame is leaps and bounds above this, mainly because, lots of cool sliding parts for the armor hatch gimmick. So here is the inner frame of the arm. Like the rest of the inner frame, it's all very nicely detailed. You're not going to be getting any die-cast metal parts for this like you are with the legs. It's just going to be completely plastic. But I think that's fine considering this is going to be holding up some weapons, which would be a bit heavier. So in terms of the bend, you're going to get a very nice solid 180-degree bend, and you're going to get a lot of nice sliding armor pieces. My favorite part is probably how here it acts like, a muscles with the biceps and triceps, sliding around, very impressive, as well as the back of the arm, left sliding around, very nice. Now, in terms of further articulation, the forearm here is going to be able to move out, and you can see some very nice chrome pistons, though beware, this part does tend to unlodge itself and bounce out because the connection piece really isn't that tight, but it does give a very nice amount of articulation to the wrist and the forearm. So here are the Perfect Grade hands. They're the standard Perfect Grade, fully articulate with a nice peg here to hold on to weapons. Now the interesting about this is that it's molded in two colors, the white and the red, but this actually isn't how the hands of the Astray are canonically designed. I assume that they, didn't want to print completely new hands so that it matches the line art of the Astrays, but at the same time, they didn't want to mold completely red hands for Perfect Grade. So they went with a compromise where they alternate digits in terms of colors. So while definitely not my favorite, I do think that it looks very good, and it is a nice compromise between the fully red hands and the canonical design. So here is the head of the inner frame. It's pretty unremarkable except the LED, which you can slide in and out to turn on and off. Other than that, it's pretty much just a bare bones inner frame. Interesting enough, it doesn't really resemble a Gundam's except for maybe the cylinders here, which are kind of a trademark of the Astray head. But other than that, it's pretty standard, if not under-detailed, inner frame head. So here is the Perfect Grade Red Frame Astray's complete inner frame. Though that might be a bit misleading considering this is 95% the Perfect Grade Strikes inner frame. You're going to get a new set of shoulders, a head, and some new parts for the waist. But other than that, it's basically a carbon copy of the Perfect Grade Strikes with some parts removed to accommodate the new Astray armor. Now, I do think it looks very impressive because I do like the Perfect Grade Strikes inner frame. I think that in terms of the more modern Perfect Grades, it's definitely one of the best. But for my Perfect Grades, I kind of expect a completely new inner frame if it's going to be a completely new mobile suit. Some reuse here and there, that's fine. But to reuse basically an entirely new inner frame is kind of disappointing for me. And I think that the Perfect Grade red frame does suffer from having to kind of fit inside the Perfect Grade Strikes inner frame. There are some proportion issues, just making it look very, very bulky and fat. Whereas the original line art was a bit bulky, but definitely not to this degree. And especially with the more recent designs of like the Master Grade, Real Grade, and Metal Build, where they kind of make him a bit more lean and slim, I definitely prefer that. And in the face of that, the Perfect Grade definitely looks a bit fat and unsleek. Now, usually I don't pose just the inner frame, but this is a Perfect Grade, so let's have some fun with it. As you'd expect from the Perfect Grade Strikes frame, it has very good articulation, can pull off the kneeling down pose, no problem. As you'd expect from the Perfect Grade Strikes inner frame, the articulation and mobility is really impressive. You can pull off a lot of cool, dynamic, wacky poses. I feel like the whole Cyclops mono-eye thing of the inner frame does make these poses a little more intimidating than they would be on the Perfect Grade Strikes. I guess you could say that this frame is the bomb. It's probably a bit egomaniacal for him to be giving himself a thumbs up, but this is a very solid inner frame despite being borrowed from the Perfect Grade Strikes. So this has been my look at the inner frame of the Perfect Grade Red Frame Astray. Please comment, like, subscribe, and stay tuned for the next part where we'll be going over the parts of the Gundam as well as its weapons.